This is our first podcast in a series that ICSID is starting, and I think that you are just a tremendous person to be the first one because of all of your experience and all of your background and a lot of your different experiences over the years. So it's really nice that we get to meet you. For our audience, Professor Zhang has played a major role in China's modern trade and investment laws. And I think it's quite extraordinary because we've seen so many developments in China over the last decades. And you've actually been responsible or been involved in every one of those ones. So interesting that you have this broad picture of what's happened in the last years with China and with its economic opening and all of those. So I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you about this. You, of course, were in the early 1980s the Director General of Law and Treaties at the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation. You've been a key figure at the WTO as Chief Legal Counsel when China went back with the GATT negotiation resumption, and then WTO accession, which is very exciting. Few people live through a WTO accession, I think. And then, more recently, as a member of the WTO Appellate body. You also found time between all of this to work at the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank and to be a governor of what's known as Unidroit. So you have been extremely busy and kept your hand both in the private law aspect but also public law and public economic law. And you're still very busy, and you are now, I know, a professor and director at Tsinghua, where they have a terrific program on international arbitration and dispute settlement. You're the vice president of China's International Economic Law Society and president of the International Economic Law Research Center. And last but not least, you are a member of the chairman's panel on the ICSID panel of arbitrators. And so we are lucky to have you on our cases as well. So thank you very much, and I'm just delighted to chat.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to start first with a little bit about your background and when you decided international law was the road you wanted to take.
Oh, that's a long story because I'm old now. So when I started law study, that's after my graduation from the senior high school from China, I was very lucky to be selected among the outstanding graduates. And the first time I was sent by the Chinese government to France. And the first batch of students before the Cultural Revolution.
Oh, really?
At the time, I was only 18 years old.
I just wonder what that must have been like as an 18-year-old, all of a sudden landing in France. Must have been totally different worlds.
Yes.
How did you find that?
Yeah, you know, I took a train from Beijing through Siberia, former Soviet Union, and then until to Paris. So a long journey.
So you went by train to Paris?
Yes,
oh, isn't that great?
1 week long.
Wow.
So and also the first arrival in Paris, because the first Western country. They have established diplomatic relations with China, even a month earlier, because the formal signing of the bilateral trade diplomatic relations. So after our arrival in France, so very impressive. And my first feeling, you know, the difference of standard of living, I feel a lot of sympathy to my parents, to the farmers of China, because at that time, the Chinese people's standard of living still very low. Our 1 month spending equivalent to their 1 year income, even less. So their income is very, very little.
And as you were starting your education here, my little understanding about Chinese history, it was the start of Opendoor policy and opening up economically. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's starting from 1978.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm very lucky to be one of the first pioneers to prepare Chinese foreign-related laws and regulations.
Was this all something that was welcomed by people in China, or were people sort of wondering, what is this all about, because it was so new?
In the beginning, it was a little bit difficult. But afterwards, they recognized the benefit. Because companies, when they go to, to invest in the U.S., in Europe, they have to recruit very expensive lawyers to know their local company law, to know their local contract law. But now, through the CISG,
yes.
the Sales of Goods Convention, then if except you invoke not apply the CISG,
exactly.
the convention will be applicable. So now the people get very familiar.
We've got the same standard.
I'm always in favor of harmonization of international investment law and commercial law.
Exactly. I wanted to talk a little bit about the GATT membership resumption. What was that all about? What was that like?
Okay. Since 1980, the Opendoor policy of China joined the WTO, the World Bank and the IMF, but only the GATT issue that China was not a member. So because it's a contractual nature of GATT, so they have to negotiate the interest, the accession protocol, and also they have to negotiate bilaterally with all other members. So it took quite long, almost 15 years.
Really?
Yes, but initially very difficult. There's two things. First, foreign countries, members, they do not know China. So they want to know, you should present your economic system, your trading system. On the other hand, and at the time, the tax import duties were very high, so compared to the Western countries. And also, on the other hand, internal economic reform they do need, because China was in the transition period of time from the central controlled economy. Only about 20 state trading companies initially, gradually expanded.
And again, was it something that concerned domestic businesses in China, that all of a sudden you would have foreign enterprises running in, and that there would be was it a level playing field to compete? Was that a concern?
In the beginning, yes. Because many domestic companies, they are unable to compete in terms of, the equipment investment, or in particular in terms of their very sophisticated engineers or managers. But later on, they recognize once they open, they have more opportunities to learn from the joint ventures, their counterparts. So, and the foreign companies are also very happy, because China has a huge domestic market.
Access to that.
They benefit a lot. Look at those Microsoft or McDonald's or all the companies. Or Volkswagen, for instance, they are the most profitable branch is always in China.
Exactly.
So they gain a lot. It's a win-win situation. And also, because you cannot send so many people abroad to study. And, to have foreign companies to come, their management skills, or their, the quality control, or this, and their service. So I think that that's why your impression when you come to China, so many beautiful hotels. In the beginning, I tell you, in 1979, or even the Minister of Trade just stopped in the middle of the elevator, because outdated. And after introduce some joint ventures, so now it's modern. Yes.
And it's extraordinary. The other part of WTO that I think has been a huge part of your life is you were named to the appellate body
Yes.
of the WTO. When were you named to the appellate body?
It was, when I finished my work as a senior official, as Director General, and initially as Assistant General Counsel, and from the Asian Development Bank, I served as the Executive Director of China to the Western African Development Bank for 3 years, Francophone.
That's great.
And afterwards, in 2006, and one day, just the Deputy Director of the Department of Trade, Treaty and Law in MOFTAC, he called me. He said, an opportunity to compete, to work as a judge of the WTO. Do you want to do that? I said, certainly. I love to come, because when I worked in the Asian Development Bank, I served as the contact person of the ADB with the WTO. So through that time, very frequent visit, and also to join the cooperation with the two system. So I, particularly for the dispute settlement.
We often hear about the WTO appellate body as the jewel in the crown, and
Yes.
it is the example internationally.
Yeah.
What are the things you saw at the WTO appellate body that you think are responsible for its success?
I would say, first, the selection of the appellate body members, very strict, because they should be worldwide recognized experts in law, in trade, in WTO matters. So the selection, normally, for one vacancy, they may have 20, candidates. So the selection very strict. The second is the rule, because the dispute settlement appellate body, the DSU, they have strict rules in terms of code of conduct to avoid any potential or direct or indirect conflict of interest. So very, very strict. And also we work, because the assignment is very clear. We are dealing with the legal issues. So we work very, very hard. For one case, you have looked at all the jurisprudence and also the treaty interpretation. So we use more often the treaty interpretation. I can remember all the Vienna Convention, Article 31, 32, 33, object, purpose, normal meaning, good faith, and I can give you, many, many cases for this one provision. So it's really wonderful opportunity. For me, I enjoy it very much.
I can imagine. Now, WTO has very short timelines. And one of the things we hear in investment all the time is, why do cases take so long? And the WTO can do these amazingly complicated cases in 90 days, 180 days. How does that get accomplished at the WTO? Are there lessons for investment?
Yeah, you are right. I'm thinking about that. For all dispute settlement, I think that the most important is to provide a prompt and a positive solution of dispute, to provide more predictability and stability of the system. For arbitration or this WTO type of trade dispute or investment dispute like ICSID, I think to shorten the time is convenient for the parties, and also to promote also peaceful cooperation, the world peace and development, and also reduce the cost. Because otherwise, I always have burdens. lawyers can gain a lot through lengthened papers, but parties, they have to pay. So I really think that those time limit, very good.
The WTO, I think, has had a practice internally about collegiality.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you think that's had a big effect on the effectiveness of the system and on the jurisprudence that's been issued, so that you don't have frequent dissents or that kind of issue.
Yeah.
And I know in investment, people often talk about dissenting opinions and separate opinions, and are there too many? And I wonder if a practice like collegiality might be something that would also be a useful thing. Not to say investment tribunals aren't collegial, but this practice of collegiality as a judicial technique.
Yeah, I think that we have the common objective. The ICSID is for the purpose, for all the dispute settlement, to protect the integrity of ICSID award, of ICSID system, and also of the ICSID institution as a whole. When we show the rule of law to people, the most important is to get people, they are inspired by the importance of the law, they need to follow.
Exactly.
So if we give, personally, always different interpretations, it's confusing.
There's a lot of conversation now about DSU, dispute settlement understanding, negotiation, updating, and I know that's been a theme in Geneva and with member states for quite a while. Do you think there will be in the next, 2-5 years, that they will be able to update the DSU?
I think so, because nobody can deny still the dispute settlement of the WTO is one of the most successful function among the 4 functions of the WTO. Then you will see that's why you mentioned that the jewelry of the crown is very important. They give the importance and the achievement, the credibility of the WTO dispute settlement. Even under such difficult time, and the members, they still keep bringing their cases. It shows their trust on the system. And really, the system can settle the dispute. And certainly, no system is perfect. So we need to have further reform and to meet the needs of the governments, of the dispute settlement users. So I think that, for instance, for the appellate body, I have already wrote articles for the improvement, reform, the time issue and the lengthened paper. They have formal, limit of pages. The most important, I mention all the time, for our dispute settlement, it's not a presentation. It's not an individual achievement. We really, our common goal to solve the problem jointly, positively, quickly, and low cost, and correctly. So I said our report should be correct, clear, and concise. Yeah. So then we set up confidence and the credibility of the system. So, but all those proposals for reform, more or less technical nature.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that members, they should, show their political, support. That's very important.
The success of the WTO appellate body, I think, in many ways is often cited by people who say, we need an appellate body in investment. And I'm sure, since you're doing many investment cases these days, you're aware of that appellate body discussion. Yeah. What's your thought on that, if any, or your prediction?
Yes, I would say the appeal is regarded as act between correction and the finality. So if we look at the system of ICSID, the system of the WTO, at the panel stage, the first stage, ad hoc basis, And also those staff, they do not have enough time to go through, to specialize in those provisions, those agreements or treaty interpretation. So it's inevitable that their awards, they will have some, error, sometimes manifest error of law.
Exactly.
So in that case, I think the appeal system will be very helpful to harmonize the system. I don't see the unification is impossible for investment law with 3,000 BIT agreements. But harmonization of the system, to have a common understanding of the fair and equitable treatment, for instance, for the definition of a foreign investor, for the definition of investment, all those I think we can settle through our joint efforts. By the way, some people, I mentioned openly, to set up a new system, the cost is very high.
Yeah.
The overall objective is to reduce the cost, to make our system more efficient. That's why not only in front of you, but in other occasions, I'm always in favor of strengthening the current investment system under the Washington Convention since 1965. So long-term experience. We should use this system and improve this system to introduce either parallel appeal system or just integrate into the current annulment. Because the current annulment, 52 with 5 items, but the important item, the manifest error of law, is not there.
It's interesting, and in a way, you're right. It would take an annulment system to an appeal type of system with a different standard. In terms of arbitration, what are the things that you look at in your career that have made you a good arbitrator?
The Chinese word is 重, it means a person, and then the right letter is middle. So the character of the arbitrator first is a middle person, middleman, independent, not biased. So, and then you can make a 裁 as a decision, ruling. So I always mention to my own experience. You are working, you are settling the disputes. Meanwhile, you are creating your credibility.
Exactly.
So to let people trust you, you should be really independent, without any, financial scandals or expert communications. No, you have to forget yourself. You really serve to the parties. So independent, impartiality is crucial, and also professionalism. And the dedication, hardworking. So all those. If you want to earn more money, maybe not arbitrators. You can work as a lawyer, but by the end of the day, if you serve as arbitrators, you have broader visions.
Exactly.
It's not the clients driven. So you work independently. You can do your own research work. Professionally, I enjoy very much.
Exactly. It's
I
really
feel
intellectually. Absolutely. And now you're doing a lot of teaching. I know you've taught all the way through your career, but now you're really focusing on teaching. And I'm wondering if you would have particular advice for your students when they come to you and say, I'm thinking of doing arbitration and maybe even investment.
I like teaching. When I served the Director General of the Department of Treaty of Law in the Ministry of Trade, I have been already appointed as a professor at the People's University and the Foreign Trade University. So already long practices, different universities. I taught also in international foreign countries, Nantes University, Hong Kong University, and Columbia University. So I get used to teach because I think first, by teaching, you can summarize your knowledge to become systematic.
Yes.
And you can enhance your analytical skills. So it's good. Mm-hmm. And to push yourself to learn more, and then you can teach better. That's one thing. The other thing is the urgency to younger people, because worldwide, and particularly in China, for international trade dispute or investment dispute, we need many very professional and talented and dedicated people to do that. Because to be selected as arbitrator is a competition. It's not administrative appointment. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think they should study very hard, and they should have a broad vision, and also to dedicate. If they want to only to think about to earn more money, maybe it's too narrow. So I really think that I give students, the advice. You know, you need to build up your long career path, and study hard, very hard, because learning is a lifelong circle. Myself, even after so many years, but I still I love to read books and to learn new cases. So I think that everybody needs to learn. That's very important, and to be more competitive. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Have you had people in your life that you would say were your mentors, or that were particularly influential that you think of as you pass your career?
Certainly, at different schools, at different stages, I had many outstanding mentors and teachers. But I should say, frankly, the first teacher was my mother. Oh, yeah. Because she grew up in a very poor family with many brothers, and she had to work at the age of 10, and very difficult. But even she didn't have opportunity to go to school. So that's why she was so determined that ask me to study, to go to school. I will do everything possible to support you to pursue your higher education as high as possible. And I know that I have 3 brothers, big family. She worked and raised 4 children without any help. She got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to prepare the whole day food for us. And then in the evening, she went to the school to learn. Wow. Oh, so that's why I'm very impressed by my mother. So, but unfortunately, because of overloaded, too much work, she passed away at the age of 52. It's really a pain. From the bottom of my heart.
It's a real loss.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She would be incredibly proud to see what her daughter did. That's an amazing, from your mom working all those hours and bringing up her children and not having the education, to you having all of these incredible degrees, but also incredible experiences. It's a tribute to her, but also to you. I thank you because I think your career is fascinating, and it's really lovely to have a chance to talk about it. And thank you very much for spending this time with us.